Hey guys, how are you? What's up? So, in the previous videos of sociology, we have discussed the sociology of G.S. Ghurye in discussion of our paper 2, and now we will delve into the social background of Indian nationalism. So, this concept or the social analysis of the Indian national movement was given by Marxist sociologist AR Desai. So, in this video, we are going to talk about the sociology of AR Desai. Guys, I'm Satyanarayan. I'm a 2019 batch IPS officer and I scored 298 in sociology. And this topic is directly covered in paper 2. So, let's start the discussion. And in the very beginning, we must say that before the colonial powers came to the India, the diversities of India and because there were different kind of diversities, for example diversities of religion, culture, language and also region. So it was believed that India cannot form a nation. When we are going to talk about nationalism, first we have to understand the concept of nation. So many believed that India cannot form a nation because there are so many diversities, but AR Desai analyzed that the most important aspect for the development of Indian nationalism was the British rule, and he said that nationalism in India developed because of the social and the material conditions which were provided by the Britishers. So we know that Britishers introduced different kind of administrative structure which was present or prevalent in the British society, in the European society. So the singular administrative structure under which all the different branches of police and administration, so it was a centralized system, so that helped in bringing Indians together. And another modern institutions, and then the rise of the anti-colonial freedom struggle. So this is the basic of the growth of the Indian nationalism. These are conditions based upon which the nationalism in India developed. Now we will see what AR Desai has to say on the social background of the Indian nationalism, and he said that material conditions are important for the development of Indian nationalism, or we can say that he analyzed the rise of Indian national movement from material conditions or Marxist point of view. So he said that the structural transformation which were introduced by the Britishers in the Indian society and Indian economy, that has helped to the growth of the Indian nationalism. And he investigated into the production relations, like how the new classes developed after the Britishers came to India. Earlier, there were feudal classes, but after the oncoming of the Britishers, the mode of production, it changed, and also there was a rise of the capitalist forces. Yani ki there was a rise of capitalist class, and these factors and these social conditions, they were important in the rise of Indian national movement. He also analyzed that for him the development of nationalism in different countries had followed different paths. So उनका कहना था कि अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ में जो नेशनलिज्म है वो अलग अलग तरीके से आया है, एंड हर नेशन जो है दैट हैज़ बोर्न एंड फोर्स्ड इन अ यूनिक वे. एंड investigating into the history of Indian nationalism, AR Desai finds that the roots of the Indian nationalism lies in colonialism. So he analyzed why and how nationalism in India emerged and what were the social and the material conditions. So this is basically the analysis of Indian nationalism from the Marxist point of view, or keeping the production of relations and rise of social classes in context. Then he further said that the actions and interactions of several subjective and objective factors and the forces which developed in the Indian society, they helped in the formation of Indian nationalism. And he argues that the process of development of Indian nationalism was very complex. He said that the process of development of Indian nationalism was not an easy matter. It was a complex affair. And he said that the social structure of Indian society was unique. The rise of nationalism was complex because the structure of Indian society was unique. There were so many diversities, there were geographical diversities, there were linguistic diversities, different linguistic groups were present, and there were too much cultural differences also across the regions. So these are the very unique and complex conditions and complex situation. So despite all these diversities and all these conditions or and all these differences, the British rule in India, despite such old differences, it provided the space for rise and development of the Indian nationalism. So this is basically the crux of the matter. He also said that the British nation, for its own purpose, अपने स्वार्थ के लिए, अपने मतलब के लिए, they radically changed the economic structure of the Indian society. They introduced or they established a centralized state and also introduced modern education, modern means of communication. You know that, you have read that in history, that Britishers introduced railways, telegraph, and various modes of transportation. They also laid railway lines, and they also constructed bridges. So basically they played a role in economic integration of the country, or economic integration of the different parts of the country. So that's how the role of the Britishers is played in the rise of Indian nationalism. And as a result of the conditions which were provided by the British colonialism, there were rise of different social classes. We will see in how different phases different social classes have emerged, and how they have played a role in the Indian national movement also. But for AR Desai, he said that the social forces which were unleashed because of the conditions which were provided by the British government, they played the role in the formation of Indian national movement. And he said that the very interests of the Indians, or the social forces, by their very nature, they came into conflict with the British imperialism, and they became the motive power for the rise and development of the Indian nationalism. So we know by reading history that because there was economic degradation of the country, there were economic famine, there were different famines, एंड बिकॉज देर वॉज ओवरऑल पॉपुलराइजेशन ऑफ द मासेस, यानी कि जो ओवरऑल जो मासेस थी उनका जो एक इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस जो है वो काफ़ी डाउनफॉल हो गया था. सो दैट प्रोड्यूस्ड द फोर्सेस एंड द मोटिव फॉर द राइज ऑफ द इंडियन पीपल. एंड इकोनॉमिक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, दैट वॉज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट आस्पेक्ट फॉर AR Desai. So he said that other than economic transformation, modern transport, new education, press, etc., they contributed towards the unification of the Indian people, and that engendered the nationalist consciousness among them. Now AR Desai has analyzed the phases of Indian nationalism. He has divided the phases of Indian nationalism before independence into 5 phases. So first phase he covers up to the formation of Indian National Congress. He says that before the formation of Indian National Congress, the base or the social base of the Indian national movement was very narrow. There were few intelligent, educated people like Raja Ram Mohan Rai and other intelligentsia. So they were the like first exponents of the Indian nation and the Indian nationalism. But this base was very narrow. And he said that the idea of the educated people or the intelligentsia, that remolded the Indian society and religion in the spirit of new principles of democracy, rationalism, and nationalism. So we know that Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he argued for humanism and rationalism. These are the two values which he studied from the French Revolution, and he was like greatly motivated, or you can say greatly influenced by the rise of liberty, equality, fraternity, and rationalism in the European society. So they were the like early proponents. So till the formation of Indian National Congress, AR Desai says it was the phase 1 of the Indian nationalism. During the second phase, the liberal intelligentsia of the Congress, under the umbrella of the Congress or the Indian National Congress, they represented the national movement. And he says that up to 1905, that is the time of the partition of the Bengal. So till the partition of Bengal, he says that during these 20 years, the intelligentsia were liberal, and their method of like petitions and through propagation, they propagated the value of Indian nationalism. But still the social base was narrow, it was not that much wide. And through the expansion of the Western education and growth of trade in India and outside India, a new merchant class and educated elites also developed in India. And similarly, at the same time, the industrial setup, the rise of the industrial setup, that gave to the rise of industrial class. So basically Indianization of services, and as well as many Indians associated themselves with the state administration and machinery. So AR Desai says that during this period there was a rise of militancy in India also. Next phase is covered from 1905 to 1918, and he says that during this period, the liberals, as the leaders of the national movement, they were replaced by the extremists. And the period of militancy and inclusion of the lower middle class started during this phase. So the social base of the Indian national movement started growing, and the extremists they instilled the feeling of national self-respect and self-confidence. यानी कि they propagated the idea of Atma Shakti, and they said that Indians can achieve independence, Indians are able to self-govern themselves, and that is why their methods were extremist also. And they said if we use violence to achieve independence, there is nothing wrong in that. So AR Desai sees that during this period the leaders attempted to base such consciousness on a Hindu philosophy, and he says that it could weaken the secular character of the movement. But at the same time he says that the upper class Muslims, they also developed political consciousness, and they founded the political organization called Muslim League. So this is basically the third phase. During the fourth phase, the expansion of the nationalist movement took place. It was a period of expansion, and earlier it was limited to a few classes, but now the middle classes and the lower classes, they were also started getting inducted into the Indian national movement. And this was the period when mainly Mahatma Gandhi was accepted as the leader of the Indian national freedom movement. And during this period we saw different like civil disobedience movement, and we also saw non-cooperation movement during 1920s. So basically the period between 1918 to 34 is termed as fourth phase of the Indian national movement. And AR Desai says that during this period there were several factors which brought the national awakening into the Indian masses. He says that the post-war economic crisis after the First World War, the disillusionment about the government promises. Earlier people were hopeful that the government, the British government, they will do welfare of the Indian people, but by this time, and particularly after the First World War, there was increased repression by the state, and that affected the people, including the peasantry and the working class also. And that started the different kinds of peasants and working class movements also. We know that by this time the Marxist, there were labor union movements, etc. So during this time we see many peasant and working class movements also. And the democratic movements of many countries, for example in Ireland and other countries, and socialist revolution in Russia, they also encouraged the Indian masses. This was also another factor, the international factor. And the Indian capitalists, they also become increasingly they become economically stronger during the war time due to the industrial expansions. And because of that, the Swadeshi movement, or the boycott slogan of the Congress, that eventually helped the Indian capitalists who financially supported the movement. And now we finally come to the final phase of the Indian national movement. This was like period after the completion of Second World War. So during this period, like there were many leaders inside the Congress and outside the Congress which were, or they were disillusioned with the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi, and there was like a rise of various different groups. For example, Subhash Chandra Bose, he said that we should use the war time to build pressure on the Britishers, जो सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर का जो टाइम था. And we also saw that Nehru, although he was like a disciple of Gandhi, but his idea of India or his vision was also different from that of Gandhi. And many congressmen, they lost confidence in the Gandhian ideology of non-violence and Swadeshi. For example, there was Socialist Party and the Swarajist Party also. So the Socialist Party, they took the cause of the workers and peasants on the class lines. So now we see the movement of people on the class basis. Earlier they were like under one umbrella of Indian National Congress, but now different political parties like Forward Bloc, etc., which were like supported by Ambedkar, Subhash Chandra Bose, and then there was another political party which was founded by Ambedkar. So now we see the disenchantment with the Gandhian ideology. So this is analyzed during the fifth phase of Indian national movement. And in conclusion, we can say that AR Desai presented a Marxist analysis of the Indian nationalism, looking into various aspects of the Indian national history. So, UPSC generally they ask a question about either sociology of G.S. Ghurye or sociology of AR Desai, or sometimes they also ask the Indian sociology by M.N. Srinivas. So this is the first chapter of paper 2. So we have covered two aspects, and in the coming videos we will see the sociology of M.N. Srinivas. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. If any one of your friend is preparing for sociology optional through for UPSC, then you can suggest these videos to them so that the channel can grow. And thank you so much for patience hearing. Have a nice day.